Welcome to the Startup Grind.
I was supposed to speak about perseverance, and I hate talking about perseverance to startup people, because the last thing you need is to be encouraged to pursue your idea. You're already maniacs about your idea. In my 20 years of doing the startup stuff, I have seen people drive themselves into the ground, blow all of their money, their 401k, wreck their marriages, mortgage their homes, and really live through some disasters. So I want to talk about when to quit. How do you know when you say, this dog don't hunt? When do you say, we were ahead of our market? That's how we pat ourselves on the back and move on. This is good for the ecosystem to have liquidity in the labor market. Right? If you are fortunate enough to raise venture capital money, you might call yourself a venture-backed company. Well, that is an oxymoron. There's no such thing as a venture-backed company. They're venture-backed project teams. And your project will either succeed and become part of a real company, or it will fail. And you will recombine into some other project team, hopefully for future greatness. So here's the key. How do you balance your entrepreneurial zeal with this realism that failure is an option? What I tell people is to set up 3 milestones. Your first milestone might be around getting a key customer or partner. Or maybe the second milestone might be around financing or a technology hurdle. And that third milestone might be some distribution channel. And the reason you need 3 milestones is because you're all optimists. And when that first milestone goes whizzing by and you didn't hit it, you'll start making excuses for yourself. And when that second milestone goes whizzing by and you didn't hit it, you'll make excuses for yourself. But when that third milestone goes by and you don't hit it, that's where I want you to remember this presentation. Take a deep breath, pause, and think, who doesn't get invited to speak at conferences? People who blow by those 3 milestones and auger themselves deeply into the ground, they're the people who don't get invited to come up here. All the people you'll see over these 2 days have been able to manage that risk and reward and haven't gone all the way into the ground. So when you hit that third milestone, that's when you need to take that deep breath and say, maybe you have a certain amount of cash that you've burned down to. Maybe your credit cards are starting to stack up. You know, what is that level of stress? Maybe your weight is going up, or your hair length is getting long, you're getting a little raggedy. I saw some excellent BI dashboards founders do to themselves to see how many employees they have, what their stress levels are, and how you manage that. So you get to that third milestone, take a hard look at what you're doing and think about it. Hopefully you'll all get involved in some program like Techstars or something like that. If you're not, it's great in Texas, Techstars Cloud, is you get a lot of mentorship, whether it's through a formal program or individually. And when you get a lot of mentorship, hopefully if you talk to 20 mentors on the same topic, 10 of them will say to go left, and 10 of them will say to go right. And we call that mentor whiplash. And that's a healthy thing. It means you're struggling with a hard problem. And I think good mentors should end their advice with, but it's your company. And that puts it back on the entrepreneur to be like, oh, there's no one out there with the magic answer to say, should we go left or should we go right? However, if you talk to 20 mentors and 18 of them say, go left, you might want to consider taking their advice. And working with the Founder Institute, one of the key criteria we look for in applicants is to make sure that they're flexible. If you show up and you're just dead certain that you're right about your particular idea, and you're not open to that coaching or flexibility, you will get schooled. Maybe by the mentors at first, but that's just people talking. But then you'll get schooled by the marketplace of customers and venture capitalists and all that if you're not on the right track. I think of business as like a combination lock, and there's 100 settings you've got to get right. And it's a constant spinning of those knobs to try and solve and crack that problem. So I would like to talk about my main thesis, which is I think business is about people. If you get the people part right, then you can persevere and work your way through and be very flexible in your approach to business. I'm not sure how to advance the slides. Is there a clicker? Right here, great. There we go. So this was the quitting slide, right? I'm trying to wake you up when to quit. Now let's talk about team building. When starting a company, I think there's 3 roles. If you're a founder, you should think about having 3 people on your founding team. There's a little bit of magic to that. Less than 3 people, damn, there's just a lot of work to do. Having 3 people gives you enough horsepower to get something done. Having more than 3 people, the coordination gets a little tricky, and the overhead of keeping track of who's doing what. But there's some other magic to it. 3 types of people. I call these mousetrap people. They're the ones who build stuff. GTM people are go-to-market people. They sell stuff, channels, pricing, competition, all that. And then FinOps. They're the people who worry every day about cash flow and leases and all the junk that has to happen so that the mousetrap people can build and the salespeople can sell. And having all 3 of those in your founding team is very, very important. Oftentimes when I meet startups, they're all mousetrap people. SendGrid started with 3 developers on the board of Precog. It's a cloud company, and they've had probably 12 of their 14 people are all mousetrap people. And if you have a company like that and you raise the seed round and a year goes by, what does your business look like? Built some cool shit. How are sales? 0. How's cash? 0. Right? You need people who worry about cash and worry about sales just as much as you need people who worry about product. There's another interesting dimension why 3 is important. You'll make many decisions as a founding team. Where to locate your office, what your core technology should be, what your name should be, all this stuff. In every decision, there'll be a champion. Wow, we should get into Techstars, that'd be great, let's go do that program. And someone will be a skeptic, like, well, it's going to cost a lot of equity, we've got to move to Boulder, blah, blah, blah. And then someone's got to be the arbiter. They've got to kind of weigh, well, it could be great, could be horrible. And what a healthy team has is 3 people passing those roles around. So you don't always have one person being the champion living off in Pleasantville. You don't have one person being the Eeyore grump over here. You want to see that nice balance. Now imagine if you're a solo founder, how hard this is. Are you a product person, go-to-market person, or are you a finance geek? Are you the champion or the skeptic? Or are you the one who's balancing things? You have to be pretty heavily schizophrenic to do that on your own. Now I've seen teams of 2 do this successfully, but that's a hard trick to pull off. You need to really have that 3rd key advisor or early investor who can be a trusted person in your organization. At the startup grind in Denver, I talked about the 4 H's. I think part of making an organization work is having cultural consistency. And it doesn't matter what your cultural consistency is, as long as it's consistent and is your culture. At SendGrid, we have the 4 H's. It stands for honest, hungry, humble, and happy. This came from 2003 when I had been fired from my 2nd professional job. That time was as a VP of sales. I'd been fired as a CFO before. And what you find in conflict is 2 value systems are running into each other. And then you can abstract and say, what were those 2 different values that were bumping into each other? When I was a CFO, I liked to play it wide open. I'd tell employees our cash balance, our burn rate, whatever they wanted to know. I would tell our board that too, which our CEO didn't like, and that's why I got fired. But our CEO, he liked to play it close to the vest. He operated on a need-to-know basis only. If you did your job, and you did your job, and you did your job, and you did your job, I'll take care of the whole, you don't need to worry about it. So there's just natural conflict. It's not that his way was wrong and my way was right, although that happens to be the case. They're just different. So the honest variable really came from the sense of transparency. Hunger is a sense of initiative. We like to come up with interview questions for things. Our interview question for honest is, tell us about a time when you've bent the rules. Or tell us about a time when being honest has cost you something. You get some great stories from applicants with good questions like that. The hunger value is really around initiative, about what have you done to start or create things. Certainly everyone in this audience would be very high on the hunger value. It's also balanced, though, by the humility value, the 3rd value, is that's the sense of being able to learn from others. What do you have to learn from others? We've all seen either salespeople who tend to lord themselves over others, or we had a person at SendGrid who was a developer, and he thought he was on Mount Olympus, and he'd just sit there and throw lightning bolts at people. Well, that's no way to work. That's not part of the humility culture we want to have. But that hunger-humble duality is a very powerful combination, and it applies to all roles in the organization. The fourth value is what usually surprises people, the happy value. In a moment, we're going to talk about rainbows, too. So this is the rainbows and unicorns part of it. But the happy value, the interview question is, what do you do for fun outside of work and family? And what we find there is we want a passion story. What is something that you do that you have goals and you're driven towards? Again, you show that initiative. Your other values will show up in this. I don't know if you were the evening program, but I think the presenter there threw me under the bus for being an addict because I like to run. And I only run, though, when I have particular goals. It's really curiosity that drives me. And people have those goals and drive towards things. But the happy stories and the passion stories really make a very interesting workplace. One reason I don't have a slide on the 4-H is I think a key thing, if your cultural values are real, you never write them down. You use them for your interview process, but you still don't write them down. Those questions I talked about, not written down. It's just everyone in the company knows that's how we interview. They know what the 4-H's are. They know to get into the company, you have to go through that process. Then you use your cultural values as part of the onboarding process, what we call Camp SendGrid. It's quite a lot of fun. We were in Puerto Vallarta last week. So you do the onboarding, and then you do quarterly review process, and all the way through termination. You hire and fire on values first. There was some chatter this week on some internet site I was on about, would you really, hire for culture versus subject matter expertise when push comes to shove? I was like, of course. I mean, why is that even a question? And they're trying to say, but what if this person's like a super good programmer and you need a super good programmer to do stuff? Easy. Don't hire them. Contract with them. Keep them at arm's length because they're not part of your cultural fit. They don't get the blue shirt, right? They don't get to join the team. I make a lot of decisions every day, but I don't decide what to wear. I wear this every day. If you work at our company, there's that sense of team. And if you're on that team, you have to meet those criteria. We have 4 hiring criteria. 1 is culture, 2 is subject matter expertise, 3 is geography, and 4 is matrix. You got to fit in a salary, equity, job title. We are not flexible on culture. We are not flexible on skills. We are flexible on geography. We have people in Uzbekistan and Romania and Philippines and all over the place. And we are somewhat flexible on the matrix, about what your salary is or what your options are, what your title is. We can kind of be flexible on that. We're still a small company, although we are a little over 100 people. But getting the cultural consistency makes everything much, much more smooth in your organization. So you can focus on building things and selling things, and you're not just butting heads on unnecessary cultural friction. So now let's talk about the rainbow. How many of you have a liberal arts degree? Yay, only just a few, a lot of engineers, I guess. I went to William & Mary. It's a very liberal arts school. And people say, what's the value of a liberal arts degree? Well, when you're starting a company, let's say our big mission is to take the green hill over here. Well, I've got an MBA. I learned at school that the way to take the green hill most efficiently is to hire a bunch of been there, done that green hill takers. Maybe this front row is green hill takers. So I say, come join my mission and let's go take the green hill. And we go racing up the hill. Since we're startup people, we don't walk or hike. We're running up this hill. And we get halfway up the hill, and what do we see? Uh-oh, steep canyon, rocky ledges, treacherous waters. Suddenly the green hill is not the right way to go. Let's go after the red hill. Come on, guys, this way, red hill, let's go. And we'll be crisp and clear, we'll shift. You can call that pivoting. I prefer the word tacking, A, because I like to sail, and B, you're changing direction but still going forward. So we tack over to the red hill. Well, I've got a green hill team here that's optimized for taking green hills. How are they taking red hills? Sucky. Now let's suppose instead that I started off with this row over here. This could be the rainbow team, right? They're a little bit red, a little bit green, a little bit blue, but they're not optimized to taking the green hill. But I say, come on, I think we're going this way, and let's go run up that hill as hard as we can. And then when we realize, oops, treacherous, let's go, maybe our economic model doesn't work, right? Or our marketplace doesn't materialize. We can't get anyone to come to use our stuff. So now we're going to go this direction. Now I've got that rainbow team. Oh, they've got some red in them. They can go do this. What I will suggest to you, if you've read Black Swan, and I've sold Monte Carlo simulation software for over 10 years, is there's a lot of uncertainty in life and markets. And when you think you know the direction you're going, you don't. And so you'll head down that direction and you're going to switch. It's called real options theory. You want to preserve that option to switch. But to do so, you have to sub-optimize your initial plan. Because if you were to optimize, let's go take that red hill, talking to board members and investors, it's like, why didn't you hire that person with 20 years experience in red hill taking? Well, because somewhere in the back of my mind, I remember talking to that guy in a blue shirt who said, maybe I need to go take the green hill, or vice versa. So preserving that option to switch is very important, especially when you're early and uncertainty is at its maximum. So an interesting question arises, what happens, it's SendGrid now 3.5 years old, as uncertainty gets reduced, should you start to change the mix of your team for a bunch of rainbow people to a bunch of been-there-done-thats? Might seem logical. Matter of fact, our company's actually going through that transition right now. We're starting to bring in some more gray-haired people. Well, at the DMV, they called me white-haired. I'm like, geez, can't catch a break. So we started to bring in some more been-there-done-thats, but the more I think about it, I still think that might be an illusion. That while we think uncertainty is being reduced, I suspect that maybe it's not as reduced as much as I think it is, and that we should really still keep a bias towards people that have lots of diverse experiences. So with that, I will take any questions you have. Otherwise, there'll be time for lunch. All right? Well, thank you very much.